here we go. Go live. Right, we should be good on both YouTube and TikTok. Let us know if you can hear us switching over to the main. And we should be good on both TikTok and YouTube. Hello, guys. Massive apologies for my delay. I had some fried chicken before, and it kind of hit me quite poorly, so I had to address that without going into too much detail. But I am feeling much better now. If you're not new here, you are used to me being at least an hour late to any live stream, so you're not fazed by this at all. But today, as the title suggests, we are looking into the history behind Warhammer 40K, and to do that, I have special guest P Funk Poet. Would you like to introduce
That's
yourself?
me.
Would you like to?
I'm P Funk Poet. I'm resident Warhammer fanatic. I don't really do much on social media. I just post really shit Warhammer edits. That is about it.
And knowing far more about Warhammer than I do. So, well, as we go through, obviously, we'll dive into the history behind stuff, and then P Funk will have far more information on Warhammer, and then I'll dive into the history a bit more where and when I can. So, to start off with, for those who haven't heard of Warhammer before, what got you into Warhammer?
Right.
What started this journey?
It was actually it was a D&D group I used to be a part of, and they all really like Warhammer, and they would talk about the newer books that were coming out. I was like, what the fuck's this? Because I used to take the right piss out of Warhammer, because it's, painting little models. And then it got to the point where actually this is quite cool. So I looked into it. They explained some of the earlier lore to me, and I've been doing it for about 2 years now.
That's quite. It's basically what you're trying to do with me by feeding me little bits of lore.
Yeah,
because you know,
it's like subliminal messaging. If I start whispering in your ear to buy Tyranids, you might buy Tyranids.
Yeah, exactly. So what is Warhammer 40K overall then, for people who may not be familiar with it?
It's the idea that of possibly the worst future for humanity. So it's set roughly. Most books are set between the 30 and the 40th millennium. So very far in the future. And it's mostly focuses on humanity. It's specifically the Imperium of Man, which is a theocratic space civilization that's very, very imperialistic, and very human supremacy. So there are aliens, and then there are also traitor humans. Those are the main antagonists for the universe.
Yeah.
You've got the Emperor of Mankind, who rules over the Imperium, and he is a very complex character. He is a Psyker, which is basically a space wizard, kind of like Force users in Star Wars, but a bit less trained and far more powerful. So there have been cases of Psykers just blowing up planets.
Kind of like mages in Dragon Age, then, where they can reach into the Fade, but they're also very dangerous.
Yeah, and it's you can be trained, but it's pretty unlikely, especially at the time of the Emperor, that he would have been trained. But he is a very big leader. It's kind of impossible to go against him. And just to give the rough rundown of kind of a 101 of everything you need to know about the Imperium is it is terrible living conditions. No Warhammer fan wants to live in the Warhammer universe. That's a big thing. And if you do, you don't want to be human.
It's not like Elder Scrolls fans. I'd love to run around with the Imperial Legion and fight off the elves.
It's like Star Wars fans saying, "Oh yeah, I want to be in Star Wars." So you basically want to be a farmer. It's like Warhammer. So you want to die at 3 months old. That's all you do.
Yeah.
So it combines a lot of fantasy and then traditional sci-fi tropes, because it was just a method of Games Workshop, their parent company, from getting into the the space craze in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So they've got orcs, very clearly just taken from fantasy. You've got what they used to be called as elves and dark elves, but now the Eldari and the Drakari, or the Eldar and the Dark Eldar, very much ripped from fantasy mediums. New additions are Tyranids. They're parasitic. They're very much like the Starship Troopers bugs, but not as they're intelligent, but they're not humanoid intelligent. Necrons, which are dead kind of robots, if that makes sense. They're very complicated to get into. And then the Tau are the most recent addition, and they are kind of Japanese anime inspired, like Gundam mechs, fish people.
A bit like,
And they're your aliens.
so they're a bit like the automatons from Helldivers now.
Yeah, yeah.
Saying relevant things for the algorithm.
Literally ripped out of
Yeah.
Helldivers has taken so much inspiration from Warhammer. You've also got things like Squats, now called Leagues of Votan, who are space dwarves. Ogrins, who are ogres. Things like that. Psychers, space wizards. It's a lot of that. But what the Emperor did, which is kind of what you need to know, is he made 20 suns, and that is what sets the whole of Warhammer in motion. These 20 suns are all. The thing is with the Emperor, I've explained this to you loads. He is the perfect human. No one can be better than the Emperor. Some kind of argue, is he human? He is. But he made 20 suns because everywhere he went in the galaxy, things just went right. But he couldn't be everywhere, obviously.
Yeah.
So he made, like, chemically made in like test tubes and that, the 20 Primarchs, or his sons, the 20 sons. And in order to do that, he had to make a deal with these 4 beings called the Chaos Gods, and someone's mentioned these in chat. Nurgle, Khorne, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh. And they all kind of go after the negatives of humanity. So Nurgle is illness and sickness. Khorne is blood and war. Tzeentch is kind of a weird one. It's just a lot of weird stuff and magic. And then Slaanesh is lust and that kind of thing, without going into too much detail.
Make sure we don't get struck down. It's the same as like when I did the Sea Maidens video with Trip. I think it was we waited 15 minutes so that we would be, because the rule is if you say anything bad in 15 minutes, your stream is taken down. So we was about 20 minutes in. Trip said 2 words. I got a warning on TikTok and YouTube at the same time saying you've been age restricted.
I'm surprised Trip lasted 15 minutes, to be honest.
It's brilliant. Also, his new book is out as a regular reminder. I'm trying to
is it?
Pick it up. Yeah, the last book in the series is out.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So. We'll start off with the easiest one of the Emperor. Yep. What is the historical basis behind the Emperor? What inspires his creation?
Right.
Warhammer?
So the Emperor, if you looked at the Emperor when he was in his prime, he is just a muscle of a man. He's got a mad jawline, clad in like full golden armor, and he's about 15 foot tall. He is like, you look at the guy and he's like, yeah, he's a god. So obviously, he has been compared to some of like the greatest leaders in history. And also, what you got to know about the Emperor is he was born roughly 8,000 BC. So he's very old, considering we're now in the 41st millennium. The first one that I do want to come to is he has been compared. There was one specific moment in his history. There is supposedly a dragon living under Mars in the Warhammer universe, and it's said that the Emperor put it there. And it is also said that he fought that emperor in what is now Libya. Do you know what dragon or who fought a dragon in Libya in roughly the 11th century?
Would that by any chance be St. George?
Would be St. George. He is actively compared to. It's implied he is St. George. And I don't know a massive amount of St. George. This is where you're gonna. Be able to speak about this a lot more.
St. George is a very fun one because so a lot of people like to without dissing too much of the audience like to diss the English patriot, so to speak, as going, he's a Turkish saint. Actually, he was Greek. At the time period St. George was born in real history, it would have been a very less Hellenic, because like Hellenic culture was transitioning now at that point in time. But the time St. George was born, he would have been more Greek, or I believe his mum was Lebanese, or like an earlier culture from that region, but he wasn't Turkish at all. So he definitely wasn't English, but he wasn't Turkish. So St. George is brilliant because he has a misconception wrapped in a misconception, which is St. George is an interesting one. And the story behind him obviously is very much anglicised, which I think lends itself to the Emperor as well, because the likelihood that he did fight a dragon is minimal. But I think now you've said that there are definitely, like from what you've told me of the Emperor, there are definitely virtues that he shares with St. George, and that sort of triumphant.
There is a running theme of him being at a place where other great leaders have done something great, which is where I kind of disagree that he is these leaders, but maybe was very close friends with these leaders, which does fit his MO
A,
perfectly.
a bit like in the first episode of the reboot of Doctor Who, where Rose finds the Ninth Doctor's picture in like every major world
Yeah.
event.
He's like at JFK's assassination, like 15-foot giant, sat in the crowd.
Someone Photoshop that now and make an edit of like in the same episode. There's just the God Emperor of mankind behind the Doctor.
We need the Emperor with a sniper rifle in Lee Harvey Oswald's position, just looking down the scope at JFK.
So why do people think that the Emperor is these historical figures?
I think it's just it fits him usually pretty well. It's also something that only a supernatural being could probably do. Because let's be honest, given how dragons, to my knowledge, are portrayed in history as mythology,
Yeah.
not many people, not many ordinary humans without some kind of divine intervention would be able to kill them, and definitely not one on their own. So that fits where in with these great people that couldn't necessarily kill them on their own because they are just humans. It would fit that it's the Emperor because, or at least the Emperor was helping them, rather than other gods. Because in Warhammer there is only 4 gods that are confirmed, and that is the Chaos gods.
Speaking
So it
of
couldn't be them.
speaking of Godstow and like he may not be confirmed in the Warhammer universe, but we do have someone that follows him. Is there any Christians in the Warhammer universe?
I've got a few things about Christianity in Warhammer. So there is a guy called Alanius Person, which we can get onto later, and he is the last alive Catholic, and he is still, to my knowledge, rocking about. As of End of the Death Volume 1, he is rocking about. I think he's retired, but he is still alive. There has been... Actually, the Emperor has been compared to Jesus, the same way he has been compared to...
I mean, that would fit in with the resurrection, I suppose.
Well, there's a line, I can't remember what book it's in, but it's Gaviel Loken in the Horus Heresy books. It must have been an early Heresy book. Was talking to Kirill Sinderman, and Kirill's talking about an old Earth or an old Terran serpent demon that they called Satan, and they've spelt it Seytan, and he was struck down by a holy golden figure, which I think is them trying to imply the Emperor, because that is their holy golden figure. You know, at this point they didn't praise him as a god, but they knew he had he had extreme power. So he's compared to lots of different religious leaders. Muhammad is a big one, which again trying to unite the Arab nations the same way the Emperor united humanity. Pretty similar.
It does fit. So would Ragnar Lodbrok, the man who like revolutionized, or I've forgotten the name of the actual guy who united Norway. One of the Norwegian that it began with a H. I think it was Harold. No, it wasn't Harold. It might have been. Anyways, what the Norwegian king, would that be like a similar sort of idea, or does that not come up?
It's possible. If it would usually come after. It definitely fits the MO of trying to unite humanity, which would fit the Emperor trying to have an early attempt of uniting humanity rather than when he does it in like the late 28th millennium, which is very late considering the grand scheme of Warhammer. You would have thought he would have done it earlier. But he's compared to people like Alexander the Great, and I know you're gonna like this.
Yeah.
He is directly referenced in End of the Death, I think, Volume 1 as Alysandr, Alysandr. And again fits his goal of trying to unite humanity.
But we have clear references of like Muhammad passing away, or of Alexander passing away, of figures like Ragnar Lodbrok, or even like you could easily. I mean, the MO of King Arthur is very much God Emperor of mankind thing. I mean, uniting the entirety of the Britons. We have records. I mean, less so. We know Ragnar was probably put into a pit of snakes, which is quite funny actually, given the Satan stuff. but we don't have it for Arthur. But we have records of these people passing away. So how would that fit in with them being the emperor?
See, this would fit into my theory, where we know the emperor was inactive as the face of politics until he revealed himself. But that doesn't mean he wasn't working in the shadows the same way people believe, like certain politicians are proxies for others. See, it's
Yeah,
very possible he was an advisor to Muhammad, or he was an advisor to Saint George or Alexander or any of these people, rather than an actual, rather than the actual person, which would fit much more because otherwise you'd have, oh, Saint George is still rocking about thousands of years later,
yeah,
and that would be an issue. But then he is also a psyker. He is the most powerful human psyker, and he would be able to change things about himself, fake his own death, things like that. So it's very possible. I don't know how well the timelines match up, but he could go from Muhammad to Alexander the Great to all of
right.
these things and just like rotate between them.
We got a comment. We got a comment from Stephen Patrick in the chat, saying Norwegian began with a H, might have been a Harold. Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down? It's a bit like me if saying I can't remember which French king it was. It might have been a Louis. Uh, but yeah, I
Which
just
Pope?
wondered out.
Francis?
Yeah, we do have actually we'll do a quick I began for 14 minutes ago. We'll do a quick comment read through. Um Warhammer yeah, before the show we had Blood for the Blood God, Nurgle's love knows no bounds. We will get into that because like I know it's not technically history based, but I know in from fantasy that Nurgle is like considered the only chaos god that truly cares about his followers. Is it similar in
Yeah,
40k?
it's kind of similar. See, Khorne, he is so the way gods work in Warhammer is you have to they get their power is directly proportional to how much people worship them. So,
So like the
um,
Greek gods.
exactly. And the way that you worship them is by doing the activity that they represent. So for Slanesh, it's lusting, which is what gave them so much power. For Khorne, it's war and bloodshed. So obviously his followers are the most militant out of all the Chaos followers. Um, Nurgle's is being sick, and we can't
Yeah.
stop sickness. So Nurgle will always be about. We might be able to stop war, but
Yeah.
so Khorne would die out. We might be able to stop lust, so Slanesh would be out. Tzeentch is kind of harder because magic. Um, and to be honest, Tzeentch is the Chaos God I know the least about. But Nurgle, everyone's going to be sick eventually, and that's what feeds Nurgle. So there, specifically Chaos Space Marines, which I haven't spoken about Space Marines yet, but Space Marines that follow Nurgle, they tend, if they get broken away from Nurgle's touch, through maybe the warp is closed around them, or they're too far away from people from like a proxy of him,
Mm.
they can feel like the worms and the maggots crawling under their armor, and that must be hell. But Khorne doesn't stop his followers from feeling pain when he definitely could, because he wants them to die. Nurgle does stop the diseases actually negatively affecting them. So I suppose he would care the most, but he's still self-centered.
Yeah.
He's not loving. He is. It's a
Ag-
strategy to get more people to follow him. Because if you don't kill off your people, then you're gonna have more power if you're a god.
which again is very very reminiscent of the Greek gods, because the in Greek mythology especially, like the Norse gods, obviously they wanted sacrifice and stuff, but the Greek gods are told in their stories as being very selfish, as being, I mean, if you know the stories about Zeus and Poseidon, you suddenly start going, Hades isn't such a bad dude. I mean, Hades kidnaps Persephone. I mean, they're all bad. I'm not gonna lie. The Greek gods, Disney really lied to us about the way the Greek gods are portrayed. They're all, wait, they're all dicks. Okay, no lightning. I'm good. There's no lightning strike. It's fine. No one worships them anymore, so I don't need to worry.
No more power. You can't afford to strike them.
Literally just, and then again in the stories he does, like in one of the stories Zeus turns into like a bookshelf or a lamp. So there's who knows. Warhammer 40k in Edinburgh robbed me dry. It is
Warhammer
very,
40k near me robs me.
yeah, it's very
Love you,
expensive
Jeff.
for me. The shop that is reminds me of Helldivers. Yeah, that's what we brought up that up earlier. I didn't miss anything. Dory, you didn't miss anything because I was ill before the stream, because I overate on some fried chicken, and so we were slightly late. Sorry, that's a fan. There are tons of pleasant, generic, futuristic sci-fi parts within the Imperium, but we never see them because it's a war game setting.
Well, right, it is a war game setting, first off, but there are plenty of books that dive into it. One of my favourite is Flesh and Steel, and you genuinely see the disgust of living in a hive city. And I'm not saying there's going to be, like, I'm not saying there's not good things, because there are, if you're rich or if you're powerful. But if you moved all 8 billion humans as of right now to live a life in the Imperium, the chances are, out of the trillions of people living there, that you would not be special at all.
Yeah.
Just because of how many people. If you were a bishop, if you led a planet, if you were a baron, probably pretty good. If you managed to get a job as a probator or a, or I can't remember what they're called now. Shit. The Judge Dredd law enforcement people.
Yeah.
In 40K, I can't remember what they're called. You would have probably a better life than someone who's being used for corpse search. So it's kind of, like in Star Wars, if you're born as like if your parents are senators, then you've probably got a good life. If you're living on the underlevels of Coruscant, you've got a bit of a shit time. So it's kind of how you phrase. It's more probability. There's good stuff. They've got alien zoos in Warhammer. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
But no one ever gets to see them unless you're wealthy.
Yeah. Harry over on the TikTok side says, "Who is this man?" He's. No, I'm not gonna make that joke. I said I'd keep this stream clean.
Is that the Harry I think it is?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
So are you now discovering 40K? Yeah, we're talking about the history behind it and the inspirations of it. Doctor Who greater than Warhammer 40K from Steve in the chat.
We've already discussed how Space Marines would beat Daleks, Steve.
Yeah. Papa Nurgle loves you. There's a lot of Nurgle love in the chat. Wait, what's happening, lads? What did I miss? Don't worry, I didn't miss anything. Again, I was ill, so we started very late. Even for me, it was late. The positives are all too high, though. Chaos Gods. I feel like if I was gonna succumb to any, I'd end up succumbing to Slanesh.
I think it'd be Nurgle for me, to be honest.
Well, just like, but I hate the feeling of being ill. And then again, I suppose if I don't feel it, if I tell you what, if Nurgle could get rid of my hay fever every year, I'd probably
No, you'd have it just symptomless.
Yeah, I would have symptomless. Yeah, as long as I don't feel bunged up nose, I'd be happy. He definitely joked when talking about the God Emperor of mankind. Sounds a bit like Heresy. The honor granted bean corn flows through me. The God Emperor did beat a dragon after all. St. George. Isn't Slanesh excess not lust specifically, meaning something like a lot of pain could also feed her?
Yeah, it's like the Drakari are very. You're live on TikTok, so I can't really say, but they're very outward in their usage, or they were, not anymore. Slanesh kind of put a stop to that.
Yeah, Slanesh was like, "Whoa!" If the god of lust and excess is like,
the Drakari are just constantly living 50 Shades of Grey, but like extreme,
It's just German dungeons non-stop, basically.
Yeah.
Think more Pinhead from Hellraiser. That's how Slanesh is. I haven't seen Hellraiser, so I can't really comment on that one. Flesh and Steel sounds like they stole that from Flesh and Stone. Oh, my brain. I'm about to say I don't know what it is, then I realised that's Weeping Angels.
I know what Flesh and. Oh wait, it's that.
That's this.
Is that the
I think that's the first episode Weeping Angels appear in Doctor Who.
Doesn't that Blink?
No. No.
Weeping Angels when
Blink is the first Weeping Angels episode. Flesh and Stone is a.
Is that the Matt Smith one in the forest? I think it is.
Maybe, yeah.
One of them.
Yeah,
that's a two-parter.
The one where he says, "Never ever put me in a trap," and then he shoots
the camera. The pictures of an angel become an angel one.
Yeah.
I hate
she's
that.
Got an angel in her eye. That bit where she's like, when she rubs her eye and you see the stone coming out. That freaked me out as a kid because I was convinced watching that now I had watched Doctor Who and I'd seen the Weeping Angel. My parents were sitting there and you could visibly hear my parents going, "Oh Like they knew, they already like the entire country's parents knew that there was going to be children screaming with nightmares, and they thought they were weeping angels in their brain. Um, the Inquisition, nobody expects it if it's Spanish. You want wholesome Warhammer, the Ogrons and Orcs. Have we got any notes on the Orcs and the Ogrons? We gonna cover them too much?
Well, we don't have a massive amount link into history, but Ogrins are so loyal to the Emperor. I don't think there's a canon example of a Ogrin falling to Chaos. They only get tricked by Chaos Space Marines. They basically say, "Yeah, no, those guys are the traitors, and the Emperor wants you to fight for us." That's what they say, and then it tends to get them to work because they're so stupid.
Over on TikTok, no one cares. As messages says, "I also love your history vids. This will be interesting." And then followed it up with, "Nurgle loves me so much he gave me IBS." I don't know if I should be laughing at that or not. I'm so sorry for laughing. Yes, it's good to. Well, we are getting a lot of Nurgle love. I'm surprised by that. I genuinely thought you'd have. Whenever I go online, it's weird people simping for like Slanesh. People seem
The
to be
bad guys.
But speaking of religion, the big question I've spoken to you about this off stream because it's interesting to me. The one like, do we have how much information do we have on the one guy who is not?
Alania's person.
Yeah. Who's like
I
still
have
Catholic.
quite a bit. I have a bit of his story. There's not a massive amount. All we kind of know is he is older. It's explicitly said he's older than the Emperor. First off, I find it weird, to be honest, that he was a Catholic, and not Jewish. Maybe even not Jewish, because he was born. It's estimated about 15,000 BC, which is long before modern religion, as far as I know.
Which I mean, it could be said though. Not to go into a religious discussion and debate, but it could be said though that in the Warhammer universe he did see like Christ get crucified. Like he couldn't physically have been there, which I suppose would make you a very hardcore like Christian of any denomination.
See, it's very. So he was born, as far as I know, in North Iraq. So he was like
So
Middle
he was
East.
in the area, yeah.
Yeah, it's possible that in his 15,000 years before Christ's birth, he was just roaming around the Middle East. But it's confirmed that he was one of the Emperor's first war masters. That's Horus's position. Essentially, the general under the Emperor and under Malcador, I suppose, depending how you class Malcador. He's a perpetual, so he's immortal, except in massive psychic energy attacks and a few other reasons. But most of the time, they cannot be killed. So, for example, Vulcan, although he is a Primarch, he is also a Perpetual. They've dropped nukes on the guy, and he hasn't died. Which is kind of the same with Alani's person, which is why he's alive now. He was part of the Imperial Army. Specifically, when the Emperor was trying to unite Earth in the Unification Wars, he was trying to first unite Terra under one leader, and then unite all the planets that have humans on. That was a big part of the Unification Wars. That's one of the reasons he made the Space Marines. That's also ties into the Great Crusade, which is the big thing that got every human united. But Alani's person has been credited with loads of wars. World War One, he was a part of. He was a part of some of the Napoleonic Wars, specifically in the Siege of Verdun during the First World War. He was also in the Gulf War.
Really? That's an interesting one. So
it's
he's been a lifelong soldier.
It's kind of like in is it X-Men Origins Wolverine? It's one of the Wolverine films where we see his backstory.
But
and
the
one where he gets nuked, and it shows him going through all the films or through all the wars. He's like in the American Civil War, World War One, World War Two, until he gets to the modern day, and that's pretty much what Alani's person did. But by the time it got to the 31st millennium, which is around the time the Emperor got confined to the Golden Throne, and around the time that the Imperium started praising him as a god, because before that point, no one really did. There were obviously a handful. No one really did. And as part of his agreement with the Imperial Army, and as part of every Imperial soldier's contract, if you're in it long enough, you get what's called service shares, which I think have happened in history, for a plot of land proportionate to the amount of years you've served.
Yes, that the especially the early Rome. So the way the Roman Republic worked, they did have a professional army for a lot of it, and then I can't remember. Dennis Fang would know this. There was a specific guy who came along and he decided to give his centurions or his Roman troops land. Julius Caesar, or more colloquially known as Julius Caesar, was very famous for inspiring his legions to be completely devoted to him. Um, and when they won campaigns, obviously he did some stuff in Gaul that rhymes with Shmena Shmide. His very controversial actions in Gaul, and he gave a load of land out, and that became very proceeding. It's why Rome had so many civil wars, because there would be a good Roman like commander. He would win a load of battles, give his legionary, and even if like you if you managed to live long enough and retired, that was what
Yeah.
but you it was a double-edged sword, because you'd be put into a position where you would notably the Boudiccan revolt. When she was coming down, and the Romans were like, silly Celts, she won't be able to do anything. They used retired Roman legionaries who were living in the town, so they were like the early defense force. So you were still on. You were
So it's kind of
basically,
like when you're still in reserves when you first leave.
yeah, you're
Modern armies.
basically in reserve, but it's more so that you're defending that local town. It's the
So
idea
it's
of
more like moving to like the National Guard after leaving the army
yeah.
in America, for example.
The idea behind it is, if you've settled in an area, you're going to fight to
Yeah,
defend it.
that's really similar to this guy actually.
Oh really?
So first it was kind of a deal to get more people to move to this area when they're trying to build up a new front for the empire. He moved to the Ultramar system to live under Guilliman and Guilliman's new empire, which he was forming out of Ultramarines. Makes sense. And he used his service shares for a big plot of land. And one of the first reasons he decided that place, which is on Calf, was because it's new place. They're trying to build a new front, so they encourage you to do it. And if you decide to move there, they will pay for your travel costs. The Imperium will pay for your travel costs, so it makes sense to move there. It's trying to encourage you to live somewhere they want to build up. He ended up buying like 20 hectares of land, and he was trying to open like the new world. And it's very interesting that a Catholic would go from before Catholicism to after Catholicism's all but died out and live there. Another reason he chose that was because that would be one of the only regions he wouldn't be prosecuted or persecuted for being Catholic. Because Gilliman didn't believe, because he, the Emperor's son, I don't think I've mentioned that yet. He was very anti calling the Emperor God. Because the Emperor was anti being called a god. He was an atheist.
I do love that fact, but then he has isn't his throne the size of a pyramid?
It's his throne is, I don't think this has been confirmed, but the Imperial Palace spans the whole of the Himalayas. It's very possible his throne is on Everest. And if you look at the throne, it is just a giant pyramid, and he's at the top.
Yeah,
with then his custodies or his bodyguards going down the side.
Yeah, so if you're just some regular Imperial guardsman, and you okay, for whatever reason you're summoned to see the Emperor, and you see that, and you're gonna be like, yeah, that's a god.
See, it's very possible people have been blinded by just how bright he is. He is like, when people say, "Oh, Jesus was divine; he gave off light,"
yeah,
or you're now in you're now in God's light, or absence of light in hell. The Emperor gives off light, and no one really knows why.
Theologically speaking, people who directly lay eyes on God or Yahweh go blind. So that adds more to his deification.
Yeah, so he lived there I think he's still alive, but he lived there for years until I think Word Bearers attacked. I think during the Plague Wars. And he helped defend his land. He was first line of defense against the Word Bearers. He had used his battered las rifle that he mounted on his wall, and he was he's proper American South, you get off my land. Yeah, actually, he had a old army loader servitor that he kept with him, and he called it Trooper Person. I think that's canon. As a little nickname for his robot. And for those who don't know, a servitor is usually a punishment for someone who's committed a crime or gone against the Emperor, etc., etc., the Mechanicus, who are like the tech geniuses in Warhammer, turn you into a robot, kind of, using your brain rather than a computer, because computers have been outlawed because of they had an area where they were fighting against machines before the Emperor revealed himself. So they've just banned them all together because they do not want a repeat of that. And the Mechanicus kind of borders what's really allowed. Because if you take away all emotion, is it really a human brain?
It's
Probably
a
not.
Cyberman then at that point, isn't it?
Yeah,
So the Mechanicus are kind of like the Brotherhood of Steel.
exactly like the Brotherhood of Steel. They
Oh, I
are,
mean,
but more zealoty. So they believe in the machine spirit or the machine god that lives inside all machines. And if you praise to you, if you show kind of praise to the machine god, your weapons will work better. Your cars will drive faster. Your planes will be more reliable. Um, they also think the Emperor ties in there. He is not the machine god, but I think is it the I can never get these the right way around. I think the Emperor is the Omnisire, and then they also praise the machine god, or it's the other way around. Either way, the Emperor they still praise the Emperor the same way everyone else does. Um, and that's also where the dragon is. They live on Mars. They're stationed on Mars, most of them. And they go off. I think they power all their shit through the Void Dragon living under Mars. I think, unless that's like I've just heard that somewhere on like a West Hammer video and it's wrong, which is very possible. So please correct me. The Mechanicus are the Brotherhood of Steel, but they are so pro machine that they like cut off their arms and replace them with bionics.
so
There's a TikTok sound going around, which is from the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, and they're talking about how they cut off their limbs to replace it because flesh, like machines, don't rot. You know.
yeah, so they're trying to give themselves a form of immortality through machine parts,
Yep.
basically, which is quite cool. It's the Brotherhood of Steel's zealot drive towards imperialism and capitalism, because that's basically what the Brotherhood of Steel zealots drive to retain old world technology, but then turned up to 11.
Yep. They're far more zealous. Everything revolves around their god. There have been instances. I think this has been retconned now, but it used to be canon that they found old schematics for a old like World War II runway for planes, or like a supply drop in Vietnam, where planes would come in and drop supplies and fly off. So what they do is they built this thing out of wood, perfect to match the schematics, and they just waited for a plane to come through and drop supply drops because they just assume that's how it worked because they have no understanding of how it works. They just figure it out.
So it is reverse. It's like if we attained the blueprint to a
Yep.
UFO and then we just like built it exactly as it said, but out of Play-Doh.
Yep. And
That's
so there have been cases, and I think this is still canon because for the mechanic it's kind of hazy because they've been about for 40 years. You know, law gets rewritten. I think they have found a CD or a DVD, and they have scratched at it to try and get the data off. They recognised it was a data storage device, but in their process of trying to read it, they scratched it beyond being able to read it. So it is like when kids like throw CDs across the place and then you get scratched, you can't use them. Mechanics have no idea what's going on.
So moving back to sort of like the more military side of Warhammer, you said to me yesterday before the stream about the Praetorian Guard, which I
Yeah,
took immediately as a Roman thing because like obviously
yeah.
historically the guardians of the Roman Emperor, even in Star Wars they're the guardians of the Emperor. So
Um, they are. See, I don't know much about the. I don't know a massive amount about the lore behind them and how they've come to form, but they are basically just colonial British officers. Um, they go around with, I believe they use Lucius pattern las guns, which are kind of like long, more traditional rifles that we had like pre-50s, and they use them rather than modern las guns that have pistol grips and things. It's similar to the Death Corps of Krieg, who are just very obviously World War One Germans,
yeah,
um,
but
and
slightly
like
crazier.
trench coats, gas masks. Yeah, more devout to their leader.
All I see regularly is like animations of like Space Marines going, "You can't fire that gun; it will rip you apart," and then a Death Corps
Yeah,
Kree going, "Ha ha ha!" Like just
even
happily
better.
shooting it. Like yeah, I just get to like fire myself up.
So
So
yeah, the Praetorian Guard wear like red coats, They don't wear I can't what the hat's called because we looked at pictures of them yesterday. I don't know what the hats are called, but like a kind of tan hat, like helmet almost. We tried to look for them. I don't think we could find the name.
Name of English colonial hat. That just typed. I just auto corrected to colon hat. I don't think that's the same thing. Colonial hat. Pith helmet.
A pith helmet.
Yeah, it's called a pith
Yeah, they
helmet.
wear those. Does not do any protection for the things they're fighting, for the record. Yeah. They does not give any protection because the things they're fighting, Necrons incinerate you. You're dust now. Tyranids, I don't think they really aim for the head. They try and eat you first. Orcs will, maybe it will protect you from an orc attack, but they're so strong that I doubt it would.
Well, for an
the
orc,
Imperial Guard,
you could get away with just like telling, if you convince the orcs that it's actually an invincible hat and they believe it.
You could, but I've told you this, haven't I? Where the Imperial Guard have kind of forgot. Well, they've run out of bullets. They've run out of lasgun cartridges.
Yeah.
So they start making sounds at these orcs because the orcs base everything on literal, like anything that they strongly believe in will just be true. So if you're shooting at them, and you just make the noise of your gun, they will think they're being shot and die. So they were leaning over this trench going boom, 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 and the orcs are falling. And then they saw this big group of this big group of orcs going like this, running forwards. They kept shooting them; they wouldn't go down. And then as they got closer, you could hear them saying, "Oh, I'm a tank, I'm a tank, I'm a tank, I'm a tank." And it's like it definitely happens, but I think it's a bit uncommon. It's happened on a few occasions, but it is so rare that would you really want to risk it, or would you rather put a bullet in them? You know,
I'd just go. I feel like I would want to play around with the orcs. I would
Yeah,
want to see how far I could take it.
I really like orcs. Orcs would be the alien army or the Xenos army I start if I was going to get a second army.
I mean, currently you're trying to sell me your Tyranid collection.
I don't want my Tyranids. I don't want my Tyranids.
So what other, like, I think we're heading on to the hour now. What other historical mythological sequences do we have from 40K?
I've got a few kind of more late history, which is where I struggle with. I'm far better at modern history. Specifically, one that I found really interesting is Lionel Johnson, who is the Primarch, so the leader of the Dark Angels, who are a very secretive group of Space Marines. His name, I would argue, has come directly from the poet called Lionel Johnson, this Jewish poet. So his first name's Lionel, his last name's Johnson. He turned Catholic. He had a Hebrew name, and then he was Catholic. And he wrote a poem. He wrote a poem called Dark Angel. Sounds familiar. And it's about being a homosexual in a Catholic setting and how he's dealt with it. And I would argue, now this is a bit of a stretch, but I would even argue that comes to the point of Dark Angels trying to atone for their losses when they had some of the biggest Space Marine losses to Chaos. You know, half their legion left to betray the Emperor and join Chaos to fight against them. I think that is part of how they're trying to make up for it. It's a big plot point at the moment with Lionel Johnson's return last year, which is a very big thing.
So they're trying to make up for the fact they betrayed humanity.
Yep, and it's almost like this poet is saying he's trying to make it up to God that he is, he is homosexual. Which was, as far as I know, I'm not particularly clued up on real religions. I far prefer my fictional ones. I don't think is allowed in Catholicism. Or isn't permitted. Yeah, you're not allowed to act on it, and that's part of him trying to make it up to God. Got a few more, so there's a few very obvious ones with, especially Space Marine legions.
Overall, is the Imperium of Man sort of Imperium of Man? Is Imperium of Man like a space America, like trying to manifest destiny?
It's more of a space British Empire, to be honest, but throw in more theocracy, like way more theocracy. So, obviously, Emperor above all, Malcador's below him. Then you kind of get into War Master, where technically the Inquisition is higher than Primarchs, but no Inquisitor's gonna tell like Lehman Russ to move. They're just not, because they're gonna get stabbed. Um, like it's kind of iffy with the Inquisition. You get some Inquisitors that are assholes, and some that are really good at their job.
Mm.
Some that just get blinded by their power. I think they can suddenly boss around everyone. Legitimately, like they can legally, but no one's gonna actually do what they say. Like there's been ones that have tried to tell Space Marines what to do, and usually they have to do that. The moment you go to a Custodes, which is far superior to a Space Marine, they will just blank you, look at you, and ignore you. Which I've always found really funny. But with like specifically Space Marines and kind of ancient stuff, I found this really interesting. So the Lunar Wolves, which is where Horus came from. So Horus being, if you don't know, the kind of figurehead of the Horus Heresy, the people that betrayed the Emperor. His last name is Lupercal, which I believe is the same name as the wolf that rescues Remus and Romulus, in the the when they first founded Rome. Am I right? It's yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, what I think, so Cthonia, or Thonia, I don't know how you pronounce it, Cthonia, is the like mythological name for Crete, right? That is his homeworld. That's what they call his homeworld.
I think my Cretan history isn't as strong, so I couldn't 100% say
Yeah.
on that one.
So that's their homeworld, the Lunar Wolf. So he has taken stuff from Roman history and Greek history. It's very much a combination. That happens with a lot of them. So Guilliman and the Ultramarines are very clearly Roman inspired.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
their heraldry, they've got like Caesar's crown, the decor, even like the how logistical they are, because they are logistical specialists. No one can out logistics Guilliman. Which is when I think of the Roman Empire compared to other armies, that's what I think of their organization.
Logistically, the Romans had some of the best. I mean, especially if you look at people like Julius Caesar.
Stop being a knob and say it properly.
Julius Caesar, fine. My favorite, Saint Constantine the Great as well. Like
Yep.
having decent logistics is the cornerstone of winning a battle. Pumpkin Bear 7 says lupus is Latin for wolf and prosy. Being careful with my wording because TikTok.
They're like one of my favorite is Space Wolves are just Vikings, and their homeworld they are just Nordic Vikings, and their homeworld is called Fenris, which is very clearly after Fenrir the wolf in Nordic mythology. Like just straight from it. And there was a big thing in the Heresy where they were wondering if the Space Wolves were going to betray the Emperor as well, because during the Heresy, no one really knew which legions were on whose side. And that is also Fenrir was meant to, from my research, Fenrir was meant to assist in the destruction of humanity and kill Odin, which was assisting in the destruction of humanity, the Imperium of Man, and then killing the Emperor, which is what the traitors tried to do. There's a lot of that, and that was a big hint. Obviously, reading the Horus Heresy as someone who played 40k, you know kind of who's going to betray who. So it wasn't really a thing for us, but it was definitely a thing for the characters involved. They didn't know who was going to betray who. Blood Angels, one of my favorite chapters. So I played Black Templar, just to be transparent, people. But Blood Angels are so clearly Italian vampires. It's funny. So their Primarch is called Sanguinius, which is very on the nose.
Yeah.
Their main shtick is they have to drink blood to stay sustained. And they all wear a blood drop on their armor. Their current chapter master is called Dante. It's just it's very on the nose with everything. Like there have been cases where Blood Angels have not been able to resist the urge to like dive onto a human and try and sustain themselves.
So I'm assuming Blood Angels are a heretical space marine sect.
No.
Oh, they're good guys.
Sanguinius is the fella who you've seen the art because you've used it for this stream.
Sanguinius is the one who fights Horus, and then everyone's like, he's gonna come back and save stuff.
he's gonna help us all, but no, he's dead.
So it's
Not
like
coming
the
back.
romanticized Italian vampire from like
Yes.
the 1800, the late
And
1800s,
everyone,
early
the
1900s.
big thing with Sanguinius is, other than Fulgrim, I think it's Fulgrim. He is the perfect Primarch. He is good at everything. Realistically, he is the fan favorite. If you took a vote of whose Primarch was the favorite, it would be Sanguinius. If you ask someone to rate all the Primarchs, Sanguinius would be very near the top for everyone's list.
Tepes says Black Templar on top.
Black Templars are amazing. I love Black Templar. That's my dreadnought, or one of them.
So what's
Um,
the direct history on Black Templars?
so that's kind of hard because they mirror. So first off, they're an Imperial Fist successor, which don't have a massive amount of mythological and historical background.
Mm.
Um, but the Black Templars are Dark Angels, kind of knighthood, which they are. They're very knightly, um, but they are more crusades, and we're going to fight and die in the name of the Emperor. We're going to do all this. They're very much, we like the Emperor. They essentially kill everyone who doesn't like the Emperor. They're also, ironically, very opposed to Psykers. There have been clips of Helbrecht, in the books, Helbrecht's the leader or the chapter master of the Black Templars at the moment, and he has barely been able to standing near the navigators, in on his ship. And navigators are the psychers who try and navigate through the warp, which is how they get fast and light travel.
Yeah.
He has not been able to stand near them for very long before wanting to kill them, which obviously he can't, or they're going to be stranded in deep space.
So it's like sticking like a Confederate general with a bunch of freed slaves in
Yeah,
like
yes,
in the middle of the American Civil War.
it's very like, but it's like that, but the Confederate doesn't know where he is, and the freed slaves are the only people that can help him. It's like he has to keep them alive.
There's that makes for quite a funny. That'd be quite a fitting punishment if if
So
there's a
yeah,
hell.
the Black Templars are crusady. Like they're a what's called non-codex compliant chapter. So they don't follow the rules that Gilliman has laid out. Specifically, the one saying they can only have 1,000 Space Marines to one chapter. They basically said no and walked away. And they have, instead of a chapter master, they have a high marshal. And then instead of captains, they have marshals. That's one of the ways they get around it, because Gilliman has like a recommended company, like how you build your companies.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and they've also said they used one loophole, this is kind of hazy again because half is canon, half's not. But then it also was. Um, the rule of 1,000 Space Marines is only if you're not on a crusade, and they've said they're on the eternal crusade. They are always going to be on crusade, so they can constantly have new Space Marines. um, they've also technically said that each marshal is in charge of a whole chapter, which is
Mm.
under the high marshal, so technically it's split up into chapters. It's kind of complicated, but that's one of the reasons I like Black Templars, because they don't listen to rules very well. They're just gonna do what they want. To the point that Gilliman had to plead with them to not keep hunting orcs, because they were hunting orcs after Hell's Reach,
Yeah.
because of how many orcs damaged and killed Black Templars. Like Bayard, I believe Bayard died. I haven't read Hell's Reach for a while. Nearly killed Grimaldus on loads of occasions. And Albert was trying to get Grimaldus killed. But that's besides the point. They do not like orcs. And orcs is probably, their hatred probably goes psychers, people who don't think the Emperor's a god, orcs, and then everything else, humans.
So there is definitely the sort of human supremacist aura
Yeah.
overall to that. Is that why? Because I see a lot of stuff of people saying Warhammer is fascist. That I see a lot of. Is that where that sort of spawns from? Because I can get that sort of
It's,
vibe.
well, I would argue it's more fascist because you can't replace the systems. It's actually very aristocratic. Um, because each planet it's much like Dune system, where each planet or each system has a leader that responds to someone else, who then responds to the Emperor.
Yeah. So
It's much more like that.
very British Empire.
Uh, yeah, it's very kind of, it's a lot of stuff combined. It's imperialistic. It's aristocratic. It's very national. Well, it's not even nationalist. They are just human supremacists. It's like they've got a saying which is burn the heretic, so killing anyone who doesn't believe in the emperor. Um, Kill the mutant, which is humans that have had so many mutations over the years that they're no longer really human, i.e., Ogrins they accept because they're good at what they do. Psykers they kind of have to accept to be alive, they are technically mutants. Squats / Leagues of Votan are dwarves, they get rid of them. Skaven, or Ratlings. Ratlings are kind of different to Skaven. Skaven aren't here at the moment, but Ratlings were pretty much hunted to extinction and they're not in modern 40k as an army. And they are kind of half rat, half people. So they try and kill one of the Emperor's goals was to keep the human genes going.
Yeah.
And then there's also Purge the Unclean, which is Xenos. Because it's kind of like you weren't made in the Emperor's image, so we're gonna kill you. And kind of the more humanoid something is, the less they want to kill it. So they can kind of bear the Eldar. Other humans bear the Tau when they get invited to the Tau Empire, which happens quite a bit. But orcs are a no-no. Tyranids are a no-no. Necrons are a no-no.
Are Tyranids lizards or bugs? Because I've seen people use both descriptions.
Depends. Right. It depends. So I've got some of my Tyranids up here. This guy, all unpainted because I'm a lazy sod at the moment, but he's very dragony.
Yeah.
You know, he's got like they've all got kind of leathery reptilian skin, but they also have like a keratin armor. So it's kind of a both. But if you look at this is a Neurotyrant. He is far more bug-like.
Yeah.
He is far more bug-like. So it kind of depends what Tyranid you're looking for. The key thing is that they are of one brain. They all share in a hive mind. That means everyone they're the most intelligent species on the planet, or in the universe. Sorry.
And they're currently invading from 4 different areas.
Yes, the recent thing for Leviathan is before they were fighting on the Indomitus front, trying to get rid of the Necrons, and then also counter the Tyranids coming from up here, and now they've found the Leviathan arm is looping around and attacking them from here, so their armies are really split. It's not the greatest situation for them.
So you're going to have some kind of alliance between all factions that deeply despise each other.
Yep, it's not going to go. I think really their only way is for Chaos Necrons, and then the Eldar, and then humanity, and probably the Tau to unite. Because the Necrons are like the counter to the Nids. Because Tyranids, or Nids, as I'll probably refer to them because it's shorter, are the only reason they're fighting is to get more Tyranids. They fight for biomass. And Necrons, because they are just metal bodies with a soul inside, they don't. Every loss that a Tyranid gets, they're not getting anything back. Whereas if you're fighting humans, they're going to get lots of stuff back. Same with orcs. Orcs gives them biomass, but because they're fungus and they're not really meat, it doesn't give them as much. Yeah. But then orcs will just fight because they want to fight. Orcs aren't allied with anyone, and they won't ever be allied with anyone. They just fight whoever will fight the best.
Kind of like the Predators in the Predator franchise.
Yes,
they just want to fight.
It's like yeah, Predators going for xenomorphs because they're the hardest to kill.
Yeah,
they go for
in the last. That's hard to kill. So we've got 5 minutes because we have got a bit of a hard. Well, we've gone massively over time because I was late, but for the last 5 minutes or so, we'll have a look through these comments and questions. Tepes has been really busy in the comments. We'll start off with Steve's here. The Inquisition is what P Funk was talking about before when he mentioned Judge Dredd people. I think
they're not part of the Inquisition. They are. They are no Adeptus Arbites is what they're called.
That's a brilliant name.
They are, and they're the governors of the of like hive cities. And I only know this because Flesh and Steel, again, my favorite book. Probator Noctis, who's kind of a detective for the Arbites.
Yeah.
He runs into the Arbites all the time, and he just doesn't want to get on the wrong side of them because they are just Judge Dredd. The Inquisition are not law enforcement; they're more. I think there's 4 branches of the Inquisition: killing heretics, killing Xenos, killing Chaos. I think that's it. Actually, I think there's 3. They don't really focus with home threats like petty crime and murder. That's under them.
So a bit like CIA versus FBI.
It's more like CIA versus city police.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. The FBI is more. They don't have an FBI. They don't need one.
Yeah. um. If you want to see the bad side of Nurgle, look up what happens. Yeah, we covered that earlier. Anatolia 8th millennium, according to the wiki for the God Emperor. God Emperor wanted staunch atheism for humanity as well. I remember looking at when I was looking into like the Horus Heresy and stuff. He was just getting really angry. The more people were calling him a god, he was like, "Can you stop doing this? I'm not a god." And then you're like, "But you look
I'm
like a god."
have like a tantrum like a child on the golden throne while
I'm not.
literally blinding people.
It's literally Monty Python and the Life of Brian.
Yep.
It's literally the life. Like, I'm not the Messiah. Only the Messiah would say he's not the Messiah.
I think that's happened. I think that has happened.
Well, yeah, there's probably at least one person who's been like, I'm just a guy. I think the Night Lords are partially based on Vlad the Impaler from the tactics they use.
I actually did read something about the Night Lords today while I was researching. Actually, this was yesterday. Specifically Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz is. I can't remember. Conrad Kurz is the Night Lord's Primarch, right? I think so. And then Corvus Corax is the eagle ones or the raven ones. No, don't question me history. Conrad Kurz is based on the Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad,
Yeah.
and the central character is named Kurtz. So I think that's a pretty obvious kind of comparison for his name. I don't know about Vlad the Impaler. They are very stealthy, and Conrad Kurz is where we don't like people. Like it's. I think I sent you a TikTok about this the other day. Conrad Kurz has been known to has been known to make meat sculptures of the Emperor that he punches when he's mad. And I found that funny. He needs to get a blanket.
That's very hardcore atheism in a way. Tepes also says, even in death, I still serve for the Emperor.
Yep.
Major Kill would be a good third seat for this. Is that a Warhammer reference? I'm not sure.
He is. Major Kill is a bit big for you, history, if I'm being honest. Major Kill is one of the guys that got me into Warhammer.
Oh, I see. Is a big content creator.
He's not massive. He's one of the biggest Warhammer creators.
Yeah, and that's the biggest person I've had on the channel would be Aiden Mattis. Like so like 200,000, and that's purely because he saw me making a joke about Alexander the Great and was like, I want to be friends with this.
Yeah,
weird British guy.
Major Kill's got 600,000. He's this Australian fellow that constantly does Warhammer videos with his shirt off. He's really funny though.
Oh, I mean, I can reach out to him and see if he wants to join.
Message Major Kill and see if he comes on. I'd prefer him to Trip, to be honest. No offense, Trip.
Imagine Trip just comes in and is like, oh, okay, I see how it is. He just comes into the chat. Brotherhood of Steel, Fallout reference. Yes, I'm a massive Fallout fan. I'm normally more fantasy, but I do really like specifically Fallout New Vegas. I
far prefer Fallout to Elder Scrolls.
But that's because you're more science fiction.
Also, because Elder Scrolls is shit, but
that's just. Right, okay, I'm going to kick you from the corner. I'm not joking.
All right, you've got disadvantage in D&D after
this. Tricom? Question mark? I don't know what we was talking about when that was brought up. Tricom.
What do they say?
Tricorn?
Tricorn.
I think.
Tricorn?
Is that an N or an M?
Let's have a look.
It's an M. No, it says Tricom.
Tricom.
I rarely Google what people put randomly in the chat. I'm not gonna lie, I've had that multiple times where people have sent me weird stuff.
No clue what Tricom is. Might be a Vermintide thing, maybe.
Probably. I'd say orcs are Tepes again. I'd say orcs are based on the Romans' view of Germanic and Celtic tribes. Now that that's been brought to my attention, that does make sense because specifically the Germanic tribes. Because the Celtic tribes were like seen as better because they were easier to civilize, whereas the Germanic tribes would be conquered and then like 10 years later would just find a way to screw over the Romans. Yeah. Sorry, did you say Lionel Johnson? I was about to say that's a real person. He was a queer poet.
Yep.
Fun fact: a lot of your Victorian authors, specifically the poets, were all gay. Just to annoy the hardcore Christian teachers out there. Not to go on the overboard though, as I've said publicly many times. I think we've gone from pretending that everyone's just best friends, and now we're like, oh, if there's two men in this historical source, they were definitely like, very
You're
very
right, history.
friendly.
In 1,000 years, I'll
Yeah.
look back at these streams and think history and Trip.
History
They were
and
more than
Trip,
friends.
yeah, history and Trip, 100%. That'll be well. Some of the stuff me and Trip say on our streams, to be fair, could probably be misconstrued.
I don't think you mean misconstrued. I think outwardly taken.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Hey, what's the yellow flag on the
no,
on
don't
your
answer
stream?
that. That is from Rehan. He is my friend.
Oh,
That
it's
is the
great.
Gadsden flag, Rehan. We will have a conversation after this.
Hang on, I just TikTok was getting mad at me for not because I have to
Go
stream
shout
on
at
two.
TikTok.
Yeah. No, the TikTok just got mad at me because TikTok if you don't click it enough, it gets mad. So I have to be tapping different things in TikTok because they won't let me stream it all for
Yep.
OBS because TikTok has to be different. But no, yes, there's the Gadsden flag. Get out. Oh yeah, Tepe's answered it in chat as well. How do you get into Warhammer 40K as a beginner?
Watch a lot of Major Kill videos and West Hammer if you like the comedic stuff. If you don't, there's a guy called Lewitin who does more long, like hour-long videos, kind of based on longer form content. Once you understand the basics, honestly, buy a combat patrol if you want to get into the tabletop and just start playing in a store. Ask the guy there. He will always, because they get paid, they get bonuses based on how much they sell. They're gonna try and sell you stuff. Like my local, he's known me for a year and a half now, but he still tries to upsell me. And it's like, come on, Jeff. I know what I'm buying, but they are amazing salesmen. They would give Wall Street a run for their money.
Yeah,
Just speak to them; they will help you get into it.
yeah, they'll definitely do it because then they get a nice big commission. The more they get, for if you want more, if you're more like casual person, like I love the lore of anything. Like, at one point I was, considered what in the Elder Scrolls community would be a lore beard. It wasn't official or anything. It's just you go onto a forum and someone asks you a question, you like have the answer like that. And not so much now because I kind of went on, like I don't know, like I'm not as on the top of my head as I used to be. But I want to get back into that. I want to do YouTube videos on it, actually. And Rad, I've been good today. This is the first tangent I've gone on. Do you want to get in tabletop? Yeah, we've gone on. Ghoulie bangs Xenos instead. Please tell me that means like kills them or he.
No, no.
That's the literal interpretation.
It's kind of left for interpretation, but I don't know the exact lore because I haven't read the Indomitus books yet or any of the books
Is
where
it at least
Gilliman
like
has returned.
Eldar? Like that's
It is.
understandable.
It is Eldar. It is
Okay.
Eldar. It's the Eldar that helped bring Gilliman back. Him and her have had some
So he said thank you.
conversations
So he said thank you.
outside of the Imperium eyes.
So
It's like
he said thank you very much for bringing me back to life.
he did. He did. Yeah.
I say the main ones are bugs. That's in reference to the Tyranids earlier. Is there any giant spiders in Warhammer?
I don't think so. I think there's probably been references to them. The only things, well, Necrons do have kind of spider scorpion robots, but I wouldn't really call them giant spiders. The Tyranids don't, as far as I know. They've got kind of like six-legged things, but you can tell they're not really spiders. Orcs don't. Tau don't. So no, probably not. I assume spiders exist though.
Yeah,
I don't think that's been confirmed.
I mean, you could say like from what you're describing, it sounds more like the Dwemer spiders in Elder Scrolls. Have you guys heard about the guy who made mead/wine out of Mountain Dew?
I have seen that video. Yeah.
I have not. I'm assuming this is very much a New Orleans thing. This sounds like something that happens either in New Orleans or Florida or Texas. Actually no, Texas is guns, Florida is swamps and drugs, and New Orleans is crazy food mixtures.
Yep.
And Ohio is, as Aidan Mattis says, the France of America. Take that as you will. He won't get mad at me for saying that because he said that on live. Tyranids have spider-like soldiers apparently.
Yep, they do. The little ones, I can't remember what they're called. They work with termagants in their armies. These little ones. I kind of forgot about way.
Steve says, insert Monty Python, I'm not the Messiah meme. Yeah, it's one of my. If you haven't seen Monty Python, The Life of Brian, I entirely recommend it. And Biggest Dickers is a joke that should not be as funny as it is. It has absolutely no right. That scene has no right to be funny. The joke is awful and it's cringe, but I cannot stop laughing whenever I see it. Major Kill is how I learned a lot of my stuff, but I think P Funk Poet is sent me his content when I said I wanted to first get into it. I see. For me, yeah, if you're more lore wise, I recommend Wizards and Warlocks, or Wizards and Warriors. It's the fantasy off branch of Kings and Generals, who is one of the biggest history YouTube accounts, and I really recommend them stuff because it's done in the same historic documentary way. So it's written as if you're listening to a historical play, which is my favorite way to do lore. Because at the end of the day, lore is just history for a fictional universe. Or if you believe in infinite time and space, or if you believe in parallel universes, technically one of them is war. Like Warhammer is out there in some form.
Also, it's very possible Warhammer is our future because everything up until what's written in Warhammer could be
unless
real.
it turns out that we are like the Emperor, and I don't think any of us are going to have to worry about 40,000 like the year 40,000.
Yes, it is very possible, like that a Doctor Who DVD box set is rocking about in the Mechanicus's vault. That is very possible.
And that's just made me realise I really want to do a stream, like having a panel debating how different, like the Doctor would actually survive in the Warhammer universe.
We should just get Steve on, and then a load of experts and like Tolkien. And
that would be panel. I could get Trip into that as well. Trip would 100% be.
What would Trip talk about?
Trip is a massive nerd. Have you not watched
I
his
would
TikToks?
just say, well, yeah, I do, but it's mostly just rude words that I shouldn't say on stream.
Yeah, which is why Trip is no longer classed as a guest on Daddy's chat. That's why we have Trip into History, where he's a co-host, so that when YouTube inevitably goes, you have to take down this show, I can be like, it's actually a separate show, so we'll just remove that one.
Yeah, Trips. Honestly, the Doctor would beat Hank and Doc in Smoke Pit Fairy Tales. If you haven't read it, do. It's amazing.
It is.
I've read the first two, halfway through 3.
I can vouch that the audiobook for Freezer is currently on Patreon. The audiobook's coming along nicely. Whoever plays Tom in the 3rd book is just really like that guy. That guy's really cool. Whoever plays Tom in the 3rd Smoke Pit Fairy Tales audiobook is really cool. And maybe
he's not. He's really annoying.
Yoba and Aslan are my fictional god. Oh, Aslan. Yoda. Is that Yoba or Yoda? Yoda and Aslan are my fictional gods. Aslan is an amazing fictional god because he is straight up the Christian god. Like that's not me like trying to be preachy or anything. That's what's his
he is based on
Narnia?
Jesus, isn't he?
Yeah. Because the guy who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, who is C.S. Lewis, isn't it?
Is it C.S. It is C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis was massively Christian. The Chronicles of Narnia is quite literally just the Bible retold in a fantasy setting. Like I'm fairly certain Aslan is God, but he's like the Narnian representation of God. It is a lot of people get upset about that. I'm not going to go down the politics route of it, but a lot of people get upset with C.S. Lewis and go, he's actually, if you read the bits of Narnia, it's a very progressive view of Christianity. What's Major Kill? Is he a person? He is a YouTuber, as we've gone over. It's on YouTube, Mountain Dew guy. I'll send later. Great, I'll have a look at that. Loads of experts. I am the Doctor Who expert.
I did mention him. I'm assuming that's Steve. And I did say Steve. We just get Steve versus like Trip, me, like a Star Wars expert, and
Well, Star Wars expert would be Count.
Okay, we'll get Count on it.
Yeah.
Count can do Lord of the Rings and Star Wars.
I could probably do Lord of the Rings. I'm 50-50 on Lord of the Rings. The universe I'm strongest on, the two universes I'm strongest on would be Elder Scrolls and Fallout. I'm really good with Star Wars, but I'm more Old Republic. because I
Yeah,
prefer.
that's just because you don't think anything Disney's
No,
canon.
I like Old Republic. The Old
Mm.
Republic is before the original trilogies and everything. Like
Yeah. Okay.
the Old Republic is. So many Old Republic fans are going to get really annoyed at me if they see this. The Old Republic is just basically Lord of the Rings in space. And here come. Now I'm gonna get the death threats for saying that,
Pumpkin Bear
but it's
says they can
true.
do Narnia.
Yeah, yeah. He's
Doctor Who versus Narnia.
yeah, that would be a fun one. I,
I
I'm
think
I'm
Jesus wins that,
I'm
to be honest.
awful on Narnia. I should really read Narnia books because they're classics. Trip's gonna be every time I say to Trip like I haven't read this book, he gets mad at me. Trip is one of the most well-read like when people call him the American Tolkien, as much as he hates that title, he's so aggressively well-read. The man can quote the Odyssey.
Right, I would just say I'm going to interject here because as good as Trip is, Frank Herbert is the American Tolkien.
Which one is Frank Herbert?
He wrote Dune,
I
and I know Dune is trending at the moment, but I've read the lore. I've read the books yet. That's after Trip's
there's
books.
definitely gonna
But it
be
is
people like, oh, he's just saying that because it's trending.
oh no, 100%. But it is
um,
amazing, and it's influenced Warhammer. So
yeah, I mean, I would. If I, aside from Trip, I'd argue that my strongest case, even though he makes films and doesn't write books, would the American Tolkien would be Stanley Kubrick.
yeah,
Purely because 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is there
it's
in my
boring.
collection, is down. It is one of the best films ever made. For
One
a
of the most
start.
boring things.
And in university, I think I actually got a first for my essay where I proved
How do
that
you not remember?
because this was a long time ago.
Alright.
This was like 6, 7 years ago.
60.
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually the God Emperor of Mankind. I've been along for, but I've been to university multiple times. But I wrote a very comprehensive essay which I keep trying to find, but I've lost the actual file for because I'm really proud of it.
Yeah.
Where I proved that to like Star Wars is almost a carbon copy of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it's a really convincing argument, and it sounds like a stupid one, but the whole point of the like in uni was they show you how every story, book, film, whatever is basically the same one, and if you know what you're looking for, you can find the plot sequences.
Was 2001: A Space Odyssey a book before it was a film?
Yes.
When was it written?
I don't know. I know that the author visited this because there's also 2010: A Space Odyssey, which you shouldn't watch because it ruins 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, I've just looked it up. It's a 1968 science fiction novel by British writer Arthur C. Clarke. It was
Yeah,
developed concurrently with Stanley Kubrick's film version.
yeah.
I would like to say it's just June.
But that's the thing. The when you get into these, when you get into the like the nitpick stuff of that,
Yeah,
Steve says Space Odyssey is amazing. That is
he's
100%
wrong though,
correct
isn't he?
opinion. Yeah, he's very correct in that opinion. But
Boring.
when you go
Sorry.
further and further back, you can basically argue that nearly every story is the Odyssey. Every story goes back to like those
Yeah,
traditional like
yeah.
plays.
There's only so many story formats you can have.
Yeah, like
It's just the themes in every book will be similar with another. It's
yeah.
just how they get to the themes and how they portray them that's
It's
different.
like I always say to people, I say, give me two completely different films. Like, give me a Warhammer animation and Love Actually, and about a week, and I will figure out how they're the exact same thing, and I will highlight it to you, and then you'll be like, oh shit, yeah, like they
Okay,
are.
is that a challenge?
Um, yeah, you know what? We'll put that to the comments. If people put in the comments of this video the two films at some point when I get time, because I have very limited time at the moment. So
World War Two in color
World War Two yeah, but that's a
versus Love Actually.
documentary. That's a
So it's still a film.
documentary.
World War Two in color versus versus Love Actually.
I thought you could go all in, just be like the Hitler's rise to power versus the Notebook.
I was about to say the Notebook. Yeah.
I've never seen the Notebook. All I know is people like highlight that she technically leaves one dude for another, and that's that's all I know of the Notebook. Love Actually is the best romance film of all time. But anyways, as we've been going for, I believe actually I haven't checked the TikTok comments before I switch over. There is no American Tolkien from adventurers out there. That's very much. Also, thank you, Amy, for the follow. What's your favourite machine gun of history? The Thompson. because it's
Can
got
I
a cool name.
put something in here
What, for the machine gun?
for the best machine gun? The M2 Browning. That is literally where we get the whole 9 yards saying from, and I love it.
Because it just sprayed the highlight.
And it's still used. It's still used.
The Thompson's the Thompson was
Yeah.
you know.
Is it still used? Is it still used?
That's right. All right. Okay.
Bro, they bolted it on planes.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was on the flying. It's part of the reason the B-17 Flying Fortress was called the Flying Fortress, which is my favorite thing ever. When you look at fun fact, random tangent before we leave, when they were figuring out how to armor the planes, they were looking at the wreckages and saying like, right, here's all the areas of the bullet holes, so we need to reinforce these areas. And then one guy was like, no, it's not. We need to reinforce all the bits without bullet holes, because that's where the plane got shot and then it crashed. And a little self plug there. I highly recommend the 2 B-17 documentaries I made ages ago about the Franz Stigler and Charlie Brown incident, which is my favourite incident in history, because it is the middle of the most brutal war in human history. A German pilot helping American pilots get home, and as well I can't remember the actual name, but there was also 2 B-17s that crashed into each other, and the guy had to land them both at the same time. Which was, that second story was really hard to find because, fun fact, when stuff like that happens, the American military covers it up.
Really?
Last comment before we go. Love Actually is not the best romance film. I strongly disagree with that. That is my favourite romance film of all time.
Is it a romance film though? I class it more as a Christmas film than a romance film.
It can be a Christmas romance. I just like Colin Firth's love story. I feel
if
like
you're going for,
and also the guy from Basildon who goes to America, and then he's like lonely in England, and he goes to America, and then everyone loves him. I'm like that. I relate to him.
I think my favorite, if you're saying Christmas romance film, is Is it the
Santa Claus
called?
1? No, Santa Claus 2. Santa Claus 2.
Right. What's the song about, like, is it Last Christmas? Is that the one I'm thinking of? You know the film where the girl's got like the girl is speaking to this bloke, and then she gets like a heart disease problem, and if it turns out that she was actually given this guy's heart, and that's what the whole film's about. Such a good film.
Oh, the one with Emilia Clarke in.
Yeah. Is it Last Christmas?
Actually it might be Last Christmas. That's actually a really good film. Yeah, because he. I'm not going to say too much spoilers. Yeah, though that is actually a really good film. I don't normally see like romance films are my normally if I'm going to watch a film, it's going to be science fiction, fantasy, or war. It's going to be one of those three. And romance is my same. It's the same with gaming. It's like RPG, strategy, and then the occasional adventure game is like what my go-to. But romance films are like my guilty pleasure, and so Christmas ones are especially. But no, that one with Emilia Clarke, I'm not going to spoil it because I'm not going to spoil too much. It is an incredible film, and it's what they should be using Emilia Clarke to star in, because Hollywood is obsessed with making her a girl boss, and she just can't. Like, I love Emilia Clarke's acting. She cannot play a girl boss. She's not Gal Gadot, but she can play like the cute, the cute main character so well. Like, she plays that character so well.
It's just better than Love Actually. It's Love Actually, but better, and I stand by that.
I think it's because I watched it growing up, so it's like it's ingrained in my head.
History.
It's like Dark Crystal, yeah.
We have gone from talking about Warhammer and servitors and like mass killing to Love Actually and Emilia Clarke. Can we put Emilia Clarke in the Dreadnought, please, and send her to war?
I'm gonna edit the thumbnail to be Emilia Clarke in a Dreadnought, so everyone's like, "What the fuck were they talking about?" Josh says, "Can I be a mod, pretty please?" I might add you. I'm gonna go and play a D&D after this, but I might add you after that if you remind me. I did say I've got enough mods. Actually, no, I've gained a load of subscribers recently. Okay, I will add up. What did you in as a mod? But you got to be in more lives. You can't be like Luton and appear in like one live a month and ask me if I jelk. Like that's asks if a historical figure jelks, then leaves, refuses to comment. But yeah, so where can people find you before we head off?
don't do anything on social media except, like I said earlier, post shitty little Warhammer edits. P-Funk Poet on TikTok. I also do have a Twitch. I'm never on it. No point. Can I plug one person I actually do want to get more followers instead of me?
Yeah,
Don't go
go
to
on then.
me.
You go on then.
I am Warrior Cosplay. I mod for the guy on Discord. He's a fantastic guy. He's just moved recently to YouTube from Twitch. Amazing guy. That's I am Warrior Cosplay on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, everything. He's on everything.
Which I can safely say, YouTube streaming has got so much better now.
Yep.
Like it's like I'm gaining more popularity and engagement through streaming than I ever did with regular videos. Which is why my content shifted, because it's a lot easier to stream at a weekend than it is to research all week when you don't have any time.
I mean, and your YouTube shorts bang, don't they? They do pretty well for YouTube shorts.
Yeah. I did have something else. Buy Trip's new book, The Last Smoke Pit Fairy Tales. In fact, get the whole. And if you want to watch it for free or just get an idea, all of his stuff is on YouTube. It's no longer on Spotify because Spotify are dicks.
I have listened to the first two, and it's just got me hooked.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
The audiobooks, and like I say, the guy who plays Tom in the third audiobook is really cool. Right, anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. And now we end. TikTok is such a hard thing to end it on.
Yeah.
Because I have to press like 6 buttons to end it. There we go. Right, we're